Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into something, let's be honest. I mean, it's pretty much unavoidable these days, right? Stress.
It really is.
I mean, everyone listening, you know that feeling, right?
Well,
It's like this low-level hum
right.
of too much to do and not enough time,
Yep.
and it just seems to follow us everywhere.
It's like the soundtrack to modern life that nobody asked for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. And you know what's crazy? We're not imagining it. This interview with Dr. Naka had some pretty wild statistics.
Really?
72% of people
Wow.
are dealing with stress right now.
Wow.
And get this, 60 to 80% of doctors' visits are actually related to stress.
That's a lot. It really makes you wonder, like, have we always been this stressed out, or is there something, like, uniquely challenging about the world we live in now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Dr. Naka actually pointed out that it's not even just about the amount of stress, but the type of stress that we're dealing with.
Oh, interesting.
He makes a really important distinction between acute versus chronic.
Okay.
So acute stress, that's that short-term fight or flight response when you're facing, like, immediate danger.
Right, like you're about to, get in a car accident or something.
Yes, like you almost rear-end someone on the freeway.
Exactly. Your heart's racing, your palms are sweating,
You get that tunnel vision.
Yes. And that's your body's way of protecting you. Like, it's a good thing in those moments.
Right.
It's very effective.
Yeah.
The problem is that most of the things we stress about today, they aren't those, like, run for your life kind of situations.
Right.
It's more like this low-grade, constant hum of pressure, like, work deadlines and relationship stuff and social media, and it just never really turns off.
Right. It's like our brains are stuck on high alert.
Exactly.
Even when there's no saber-toothed tiger chasing after us.
Yeah, and our bodies weren't really designed to handle that kind of always-on mode. And over time, it takes a toll.
It really does. So what happens when we just, we try to power through and ignore those early warning signs?
Yeah.
Dr. Naka had this really interesting, kind of scary term for it, actually. Delayed stress reaction. Have you ever noticed how, like, you can push through a stressful period, you think you're handling it fine, but then, like, months later when things are supposed to be calmer, you just, like, totally fall apart?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like our brains are dams, They're holding back this flood of emotions and stress hormones, and eventually they just can't hold it back anymore,
And when that dam breaks,
Look out.
watch out.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. Like, we all just went through the pandemic, right?
Right.
And we did what we had to do.
Powered through.
But now, years later, we're seeing the mental and emotional aftershocks of that prolonged period of stress. And it's not just, big, huge life events either.
Right.
Like, maybe you push through a really difficult move or a breakup or a job transition. Like, all those unresolved emotions, they can resurface when you least expect it.
Totally. That explains so much.
It's true.
It's like a light bulb moment. Like, if you've ever wondered, like, why am I suddenly feeling this way now?
Exactly.
It's like, oh, that was from that thing 6 months ago.
Right. Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting for you, I think, as someone who, really values balance and well-being. This whole concept of delayed stress reaction, it really challenges that push through it no matter what mentality.
Right.
That whole toxic resilience myth?
Yes, the glorification of the hustle.
Yeah.
Always on, always grinding.
Yes. But as Dr. Naka points out, like, true resilience, it's not about ignoring our limits, it's about adapting.
Right.
And knowing when to actually prioritize our well-being.
Right. It's about recognizing those more subtle signs that we might be reaching our breaking point, and then having the self-awareness to pause and rest and recharge.
Yes.
Before that darn dam breaks.
Exactly.
Which I think we can all benefit from.
Absolutely.
Especially in today's world. But before we get to the practical tips, because I know you love a good actionable takeaway, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Or should I say the smartphone in our pockets.
Ah, yes. The ever-present companion.
Yay.
Both a blessing and a curse.
It really is. And Dr. Naka did not hold back. He called it a major culprit in this stress epidemic that we're all facing.
Oh, wow.
He even gave it a name.
He did.
Popcorn brain.
Popcorn brain.
Popcorn brain. Okay. I'm intrigued and also kind of scared to find out what that means.
So picture this. your brain on popcorn,
Like,
like constantly pinging from one thought to the next,
yeah.
never really fully focused on any one thing.
Oh, that hits a little too close to home. I swear half the time I don't even realize I've, like, picked up my phone until I'm, like, 10 scrolls deep into Instagram or something.
Right, and that's exactly what he's talking about. It's not even just a lack of discipline. It's about how our brains are literally wired.
Yeah.
This constant stimulation from our devices, the notifications, the news feeds, just this endless stream of information, it actually rewires our brains
Wow.
and makes it harder to focus and be present.
So we're fighting against our own biology here.
In a way, yes. Our brains are wired for novelty and reward.
Okay.
So every time we get a notification or refresh our feed, our brains release a little hit of dopamine, that
Yeah.
feel-good chemical.
Right.
It keeps us coming back for more.
So it's like we're carrying around, like, little slot machines in our pockets designed to keep us hooked.
Exactly. And that's where the link to stress comes in. This constant state of distraction and stimulation, it puts our brains into overdrive.
Right.
It's like that night watchman analogy that Dr. Naka uses.
Mm-hmm.
Our phones have basically turned us into these constant scanners,
Right.
like always on the lookout for the next threat,
Oh, yeah.
the next bit of information, never really able to relax.
No wonder we're exhausted all the time.
Right.
And that statistic, do you remember he shared it? People check their phones an average of 2,617 times per day.
Oh my gosh, it's constant.
It's basically constant. No wonder we're all feeling a little strained.
Yeah, but here's the good news.
Okay, good.
We are not powerless against this.
Yeah.
Like, he really emphasizes that it's not about, ditching our devices altogether. It's about setting healthy boundaries,
Great.
just like we would in any other relationship.
Boundaries. That's a word I can get behind.
Mhm.
I'm all about, as someone who loves to learn and optimize, I love finding those little changes that can make a big impact.
Right.
So tell me, how do we set boundaries with our phones?
Well, he actually shared a really simple but powerful goal-setting strategy called MOST.
MOST. Okay, tell me more. I love a good acronym. What does it stand for?
It stands for motivating, objective, small, and timely. And the idea is that instead of getting, overwhelmed by a million different goals, you focus on setting one, like, really meaningful goal that checks all of those boxes.
So it's about simplifying our goals, especially when we're feeling stressed.
Exactly.
Wow.
When we're stressed, our brains aren't exactly, at peak performance.
Yeah, that tracks.
So the most strategy helps us cut through the noise and really focus on what matters.
That makes a lot of sense. I am all about working smarter, not harder,
Right.
especially when it comes to, like, managing my energy and attention.
Exactly. And speaking of working smarter, he also debunked a myth about stress management. You know, that idea that we need to be, like, hitting the gym for hours on end to see any benefit?
Well, thank goodness, because while I appreciate a good workout, I'm much more of a, like, walk in nature kind of person.
And that is perfectly fine.
Okay, good.
He really highlighted that even small bursts of movement throughout the day can make a big difference. It's just about shifting from a state of being sedentary to, incorporating movement into our everyday life.
So instead of stressing about fitting in, like,
Okay.
a full workout, I could just focus on taking the stairs more often or going for a quick walk at lunch.
Exactly. Those small changes add up.
Love it.
And speaking of small changes that can make a big difference, we can't forget about the power of the breath.
Ooh, yes, the breath. Now, that's something I'm always eager to learn more about.
Yeah.
What do we need to know?
So Dr. Naka mentioned two techniques in particular that are really effective. One is called diaphragmatic breathing,
Okay.
and the other is called stop, breathe, be.
Okay.
And I think they're right up your alley in terms of, their simplicity and effectiveness.
I love simple and effective.
Yeah.
Can you give me a crash course in both of those? I feel like those are things I've heard of, but I've never really explored them fully.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with diaphragmatic breathing,
Okay.
which is essentially belly breathing. So place one hand on your chest and the other on your belly.
Wow.
And as you inhale deeply through your nose, let your belly expand like a balloon,
Okay.
feeling your diaphragm, that muscle beneath your lungs, pushing down.
So I should actually feel my stomach moving outward,
Mm-hmm.
not sucking it in like we're often told to do.
Precisely.
Yummy.
And then as you exhale slowly through your mouth, gently draw your belly button back towards your spine. It's like you're inflating and deflating a balloon with each breath.
This actually already feels very relaxing.
Right.
It's amazing how something as simple as like changing how we breathe can be so impactful.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's because the breath is the only system in our body that we have both conscious and unconscious control over.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
So when we're stressed, our breathing becomes really shallow and rapid,
Hmm.
and that actually activates our sympathetic nervous system,
Right.
which is, responsible for that fight or flight response.
Right.
But when we intentionally slow our breathing down and deepen it, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest mode.
Oh, I like that. Rest and digest.
Right. Sending a signal to our bodies and minds to, chill out.
That makes so much sense. Okay, what about this stop, breathe, be technique? What is that all about?
So this one is all about cultivating presence,
Okay.
especially in those moments when we're feeling really overwhelmed. So the next time you feel that familiar surge of stress, maybe you're about to walk into a big meeting or you're feeling swamped with deadlines, literally stop what you're doing.
Okay, picturing it now.
Close your eyes if you can. Take a
Mhm.
deep breath in, and as you exhale, silently repeat to yourself the word stop.
Stop.
Good. Now take another breath in, and as you exhale, repeat the word breathe.
Breathe.
And finally, one more deep breath in, and as you exhale, repeat the word be.
Be. Wow, that's really great. Just those few seconds, that intentional breathing and that shift in focus, it's powerful.
It is. It's really about interrupting that cycle of stress
Mm-hmm.
and bringing ourselves back to the present moment.
I can see how doing both of those, like practicing those regularly, could be a game changer for managing that everyday stress, like having a little reset button.
Exactly.
Speaking of shifting perspectives, Dr. Naka also talked about something that I thought was so interesting, and it's so relevant to how our brains process stress. He talked about therapeutic writing. It's funny because when we think about stress management, we always think about things like exercise or meditation, but writing, I've never really thought about that as a tool for managing stress.
It's pretty powerful stuff. And you don't have to be a novelist to reap the benefits.
Yep.
It's like he was explaining that just spending 20 minutes a day for 4 days writing about a stressful event
Right.
can significantly reduce its emotional charge.
Wow. So it's almost like we're giving our brains this safe space to like process those difficult emotions without judgment.
Exactly. It's not about, crafting this perfectly worded essay or anything. It's just about getting those thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto the page. Think about those late night emails we've all drafted.
Oh, yes.
In the heat of the moment.
Tell me you've never been there, where it's like, okay, maybe putting it in writing is cathartic, but do not hit send.
Exactly. So this is like hitting send, but without the unintended consequences.
I love that.
It gives us that space to process those raw emotions, gain a little perspective, and often, come to a more balanced and thoughtful response.
I love that analogy of like hitting send, but not actually sending it. It's like we're hitting pause instead
Exactly.
on those like knee-jerk emotional reactions and giving ourselves that time and space to respond with a little bit more intention.
Yes, absolutely. I love it.
And speaking of intention, he also touched upon a topic that I know you, as someone who really values connection and growth, will find really fascinating.
Yeah.
He talked about the loneliness epidemic. It is interesting that you bring that up because with all the ways that we're connected these days, you would think that we would be the least lonely generation in history, but it does seem like more and more people are struggling with feeling isolated and alone.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
It really is.
And he actually made a point that really struck me. He said that globally, a staggering 330 million people go 2 weeks between speaking to anyone.
2 weeks. That's really sad.
It is really sad. And here's where it connects back to our conversation about stress, is that loneliness, it's not just an emotional state,
Yeah.
It has very real impact on our physical health.
Okay, see, that's not something I'd really connected before. Loneliness impacting our physical health. How so?
Well, the research is still kind of emerging, but the findings are hard to ignore. Studies are showing that chronic loneliness actually increases our risk of heart disease and stroke by a staggering 30%.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That puts it on par with some pretty major health risk factors.
Exactly. And the impact on our lifespan is equally alarming. Research indicates that chronic loneliness can actually shorten our lifespan, similar to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow. I think cultivate more meaningful connections just got bumped to the top of my to-do list right alongside. Like drink more water and get enough sleep. it's so clear that nurturing our social well-being
Yeah.
is just as important as taking care of our physical health.
It really is. It speaks to that innate human need for connection. Like
Hmm.
we are wired to be social creatures, and when those needs aren't met, it affects us on a really fundamental level.
This deep dive has been full of so many aha moments, and that's a big one.
It is.
Just realizing how interconnected our minds and bodies and our social connections are.
They really are. And as we kind of wrap up our exploration here of stress and burnout and this amazing resilience of the human brain, there's one final thought from Dr. Naka that I think is really worth pondering.
Okay.
He challenged us to reconsider our assumptions about people,
Okay.
to remember that we never really know what someone else is going through.
What battles they might be facing beneath the surface.
That is such a good reminder, especially in a world where it is so easy to get caught up in our own heads and our own problems.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a call to action to really lead with kindness and empathy in all of our interactions, knowing that even a small act of generosity, it can make a world of difference in someone's day,
Yes.
especially if they're carrying a heavy load that we know nothing about.
Right. I love it. And it actually circles back beautifully to what we were just talking about the power of connection.
Right.
So to our amazing learner out there, here's a little something to ponder. What is one small act of kindness that you can offer today? Knowing that everyone you encounter, from the barista making your morning coffee to the stranger you pass on the street, is fighting a hidden battle.
What a beautiful note to end on. It really is. It's such a simple shift in perspective, but it really has the power to transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. And on that note, we will wrap up this deep dive into stress, burnout, and the incredible power of the human spirit to adapt, overcome, and thrive.
Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to Dr. Naka's book, the full interview, and all the resources that we mentioned today.
Until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and keep those amazing brains of yours happy and healthy.